Hey guys, have you ever woken up in a world where your ex is not just a ghost from your past, but suddenly your best friend? I mean, cue the dramatic reenactment of awkwardness. It's like swapping a horror movie for a buddy comedy with a side of nostalgia. If you're not already hitting like for the sheer absurdity of that scenario, what are you even doing here? So grab a comfy blanket, preferably one that smells like home and not your ex's cologne, and let's jump in. Imagine the air thick with a mixture of old heartbreak and tentative laughter as you both navigate a friendship that feels like walking a tightrope while juggling flaming swords. Exciting, but also, let's be real, a little dangerous. And hey, while you're at it, spill the tea in the comments. Would you want to be besties with someone who's seen you at your worst? Let's dive into this wild love story like no other. In the heart of a quaint town, where the streets smelled faintly of cinnamon and freshly baked bread wafted from the local bakery, found themselves grappling with an unexpected twist of fate. Lily and Jack, once sweethearts who had walked under the moonlight and scribbled hearts into the dust of teenage dreams, now sat awkwardly across from each other at the same coffee shop where they had shared countless lattes. The barista, a young woman with neon pink hair and a nose ring, eyed them with curiosity, probably wondering if they were about to reenact a rom-com scene or a desperate therapy session. They exchanged nervous smiles, their hearts racing like they'd just downed a triple espresso, reminding them that beneath their friendly facade lay the remnants of a love still flickering like an old movie projector. Jack fidgeted with his coffee cup, a black fortress of caffeine meant to ward off any anxiety. "So, how's your cat?" he asked, keeping his tone light as a feather, but knowing his voice quivered like a poorly tuned guitar. The image of Whiskers, the feline diva with a penchant for dramatic entrances, flitted into Lily's mind, eliciting a mashup of affection and annoyance. They both laughed, a sound tinged with inside jokes, precariously balanced on the edge of memories. It was a delicate dance, reminiscent of a quirky sitcom, where every laugh echoed with unspoken complications. But underneath the banter, glimmers of the past shimmered like sequins in a fading costume as they shared more anecdotes intertwined with nostalgia. Like the time Jack tried to impress Lily by cooking spaghetti, but ended up starting a mini kitchen fire. An invisible tension crackled in the air, the aroma of roasted coffee beans wrapped around them, comforting yet suffocating, almost as if the universe conspired to remind them that some feelings linger like that stubborn smudge on the window after a heavy rain. Just when Lily thought they could navigate this new friendship, the conversation skidded to a halt, punctuated by the sound of a spoon clattering to the floor like a dramatic curtain drop. In that deafening silence, Those old feelings waged a war within, obscured but fiercely alive, like boisterous fans at a football match, trying to remain unseen while subtly cheering for their team, determined to keep their newfound friendship afloat. They embarked on weekend adventures to the bustling farmer's market, where ears of corn shone like gems under the sunlight. They found joy in picking out ripe tomatoes, laughter bursting forth like fireworks when Jack accidentally mistook a hot pepper for a sweet one, his face turning the color of a cherry tomato. Yet every playful poke and light-hearted ribbing was sometimes undercut by moments of quiet reflection, where they'd glance at each other, eyes lingering longer than casual friendship should allow. The irony was not lost on them. Two people who had sworn off romance were now navigating the beautiful chaos of friendship, each trapped in their clumsy choreography of emotions, reminiscent of a dance floor filled with mismatched steps and awkward twirls. As summer faded like the last rays of a sunset, Lily and Jack leaned heavily into this new chapter, an awkward construction of a bridge from lovers to friends. Walking side by side, they often found themselves in conversations filled with choice quotes from their favorite movies, mixing humor with heartfelt truths. A new bond forged from the ashes of past romance kindled a warmth within them that felt both exhilarating and terrifying, much like discovering an unexpected plot twist while binge-watching a show late at night. Yet beneath the laughter and fun, they knew that the fabric of their friendship was woven with those latent feelings, lurking just beneath the surface like a cat ready to pounce. Ah, yes, the question remained. Could they really be just friends? Or was the universe just biding its time, waiting for the right moment to reenact the classic love story they thought they'd left behind? In the bustling heart of the city, where the coffee shops brewed more tension than Java, Lily was diving headfirst into a new relationship with Tom. The aroma of freshly ground beans filled the air, but for Jack, mixed with that aroma was the bitter scent of jealousy that clung to him like a second skin. As he watched from afar, his heart raced, not from the excitement of love, but from the sinking belly flops of insecurity. Tom, with his charming smile and devil-may-care attitude, exuded an effortless confidence that made Jack feel like a scraggly puppy next to a regal horse. It was as if someone had turned off the lights in the room he'd spent years trying to brighten, leaving him in the unflattering glow of his own awkwardness, desperately questioning why change felt more like loss than growth. On sunny afternoons, their laughter rang through the city streets like music, perfectly harmonized tunes between Lily and Tom, while Jack played the role of the ghost, haunting the corners with his uninvited thoughts. Each time he caught sight of them, Jack's chest would tighten, fingers twitching between the pages of his life like he was going through the motions of a bad rom-com script. Why am I the side character in this story? He mused. The irony was thick as he reminisced about cozy nights spent together, where silences had been comfortable, not awkward. Now, Jack felt like the only one who hadn't received the memo that they had trashed their seemingly everlasting playlist of shared memories for a completely different album. One fateful evening, destiny wrapped itself in a shroud of mischief as Jack accidentally stumbled upon Lily and Tom at the local taco truck. The aroma of sizzling meat and fresh cilantro wafting into the night air like a cruel reminder of what he could never taste again. Jack stood frozen, a human statue of confusion and despair, the sights and sounds of laughter swirling around him like a sinister tornado. He didn't know whether to bolt home, hide under his blanket, and sob while binge-watching Friends, or to confront the scene unfolding before him. The sound of their laughter pierced his heart like a harpoon, and he wondered if he could be the harbor for any old love still slightly adrift in the sea of their history. Perhaps it was the tartness of the lime squirted on his taco that sparked a thought. Was this truly the end? Or was it only a seemingly impossible chapter before another began? As he trudged through a mix of emotions, Jack found himself grappling with not just jealousy, but also the sickening sensation of nostalgia clawing at his insides. Memories of Lily wrapped around him like a comforting old sweater, fraying at the edges, but difficult to let go of. Were they just good pals turned lovers turned what? Awkward acquaintances. The tension of their shifting dynamic pressed down on him like a boulder, spurred by the realization that their shared universe had spiraled into separate galaxies. Maybe it was time for Jack to decide. Was his future destined within this new narrative filled with laughter and tacos? Or did he dare to step back onto the stage, hoping for a plot twist that could erase the lingering heartache? Thus, caught in this intricate dance of emotions, Jack was left to ponder whether every great love story needed its conflicts, or if this was just a train wreck waiting to happen. Maybe, just maybe, the fish out of water feelings would eventually ease as he figured out how to navigate this bewildering friendship with Lily. Or maybe they'd become the growing pains of their new normal. Whatever the case, he sensed the wind of change masquerading as bittersweet life lessons, leaving behind a trail of uncertainty. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he looked up at the stars. Some twinkled with possibilities. Others were just the remnants of burning out hopes. Jack took a deep breath, inhaling the chaotic aroma of his life, ready to plunge into the unexpected chaos that was bound to follow. Picture this: A cozy little cafe, smell of brewing coffee wafting through the air, mingling with the sweet scent of fresh pastries that could make any diet cry. This was Lily and Jack's usual haunt, where laughter and late-night confessions once floated like whispers in the wind. But today, the air crackled with tension sharper than a chef's knife. Misunderstandings piled up like burnt toast, each argument forging a chasm that felt wider than the Grand Canyon. The stakes, their friendship, a fragile glass balloon held by the string of unresolved feelings, swayed precariously as they faced the storm brewing between them. One that felt as inevitable as Taylor Swift's next heart-wrenching album release. Jack sat across from Lily, his brow furrowed in that ultra-serious expression that suggested he was contemplating whether to write a rom-com or a horror movie. "You don't get it," he blurted, forcing a laugh that fell flat like a pancake on a bad cooking show. A coffee cup trembled in Lily's hands, mirroring the quaking of her heart. Oh, how she wanted to scream. Each misinterpreted text, every awkward pause twisted like a scene in a sitcom gone awry, led them to this moment. The moment where honesty kicked down the door and barged in, complete with its messy hair and unapologetically loud opinions, with the din of clinking cups and muffled chatter swirling around them. It felt like they were in their very own rom-com scene, minus the laugh track and the upbeat montage. The weight of their unsaid words lay heavy like a thick fog, and just when the tension became unbearable, Lily's lower lip quivered. "Why did we let it come to this?" she whispered, her voice catching in her throat like a television signal turning to static. A flicker of pain danced in Jack's eyes, and for a moment, the cafe faded to the background as a whirlwind of memories crashed over them. A whirlwind that included everything from their first date awkwardness to that time they tried salsa dancing and nearly tripped over each other's feet in a spectacular display of uncoordinated hilarity. Did they really want to lose the only truly rare treasure they had forged through fire, laughter, and way too many bad movie nights? But as words turned from sweet honey to sharp stings, their voices rose above the cafe buzz, echoing like a tempest ready to spill over. "I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not," Jack yelled, frustration ripping through the air, mingling with the scent of burnt croissants that somehow seemed to symbolize their relationship. Amidst the chaos, a realization struck Lily like a clumsy pigeon crashing into a window. Maybe they were not best suited as friends anymore, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to hear game over on their friendship. Heartbreak cracked through their correspondence like the lingering scent of guilt, heavy and pungent. In those fateful seconds, they both knew they stood at a hinge point, teetering between laughing and crying, friendship and love, all while the world outside continued on, blissfully oblivious. In a moment swallowed by silence, they exchanged one last look, the kind reserved for epic movie endings where the stars fade into the sunset. The choice loomed ahead, demanding a separation that twisted in Lily's stomach like a bad burrito. It wasn't just the idea of losing Jack that hurt. It was the sheer weight of the love they both carried, each argument adding a thread to a tapestry, now frayed and torn. It gave her no comfort to know that some of the greatest stories began with heart-wrenching separations. Think Ross and Rachel. And no, I don't mean that time they were on a break. As they parted ways, an unseen storm rumbled in the distance, promising that when calm returned, it would bring with it a clarity neither had anticipated. For now, the cafe's door swung shut behind them, sealing a chapter littered with confusion, heartache, and a flicker of hope just waiting to be ignited. The air crackled with an electric tension as Lily stood at the edge of her favorite park, gazing up at the night sky, which shimmered like a diamond-studded blanket loosely tossed over the universe. After weeks of avoiding each other, the silence between her and Jack had grown thicker than a blockbuster movie plot twist. She could still hear the faint echoes of their laughter from days gone by, moments shared under the very same stars. Ghosts of their past danced on the edges of her memories, the ache of lost love mingling with something resembling hope, or maybe indigestion. Either way, the cosmos conspired to bring them back together, and now there was no turning back, like trying to unring a bell that also happened to play this song. Oops, I did it again. As Jack approached, his silhouette framed by the glimmering starlight, Lily's heart thudded like the beat of a drum solo in a rock anthem. Each step echoed memories of their shared moments, the spontaneous road trips fueled by overpriced gas station snacks, and debates over which friend's character was the most relatable. She knew they had stuff to resolve, but her stomach twisted with a cocktail of excitement and dread, like that one time she accidentally ordered sushi and found out she was gluten intolerant. The shimmer of the stars did little to ease her anxieties. If there was a script for this reunion, it was definitely written by someone with a wicked sense of humor. Little did she know, Jack's heart raced with the same trepidation, a mystery wrapped in a denim jacket, waiting for the plot to unfold. When they finally met, the moment crackled with the tension of a live wire, both exhilarated and terrified to face the unspoken feelings lurking in the shadows of the past. So Jack began, his voice quivering slightly, sounding more like a contestant on a bad dating show than a man about to confess his heart. But the stars above held their breath, mirroring Lily's own anticipation as she forced herself to meet his gaze, focusing on the way his amber eyes glistened, like autumn leaves caught in a gentle breeze. "I've been thinking," he continued, each word wrapping around them like a heavy wool blanket, "about us." With an audible gulp, Lily replied with a casualness that belied the emotions swirling within her. "About how we might be the best worst-case scenario ever," she quipped, her voice teasingly rolling like the credits of a rom-com teased for a sequel. But as Jack opened his mouth to respond, the guarded look on his face morphed into something more genuine, more profound, love and longing spilling out like a soda pop, fizzing over too quickly. The reality loomed like a clarion call, the realization coursing through both of them, fracturing the night's silence. They shared a love story that wasn't over yet, just paused on a cliffhanger, awaiting the big reveal. In a cathartic release, under the vast tapestry of sparkling stars, Jack took a deep breath, the cool night air filling his lungs as he professed what had burnt within him like a stubborn ember. "I never stopped loving you, Lily," he blurted, his confession slicing through the tension like a hot knife through buttery popcorn at a late-night cinema showing. Lily's heart didn't just flutter, it did a full-on dance number worthy of Broadway under those celestial lights. As she whispered back, her voice trembling, "I feel the same." They locked eyes, an electric current flowing between them, reigniting the smoldering coals of their past love. Yet, as they stood on the precipice of decision, the age-old question lingered like the scent of popcorn in a theater. Would they leap back into romance, or take the safer route as friends, comically navigating this new, uncharted tale? Under the vast, cerulean sky, Lily and Jack stood in the aftermath of their emotionally charged conversation, the air thick with both hope and trepidation. As they hesitated at the edge of this new chapter, it was as if the universe itself was holding its breath. "So what now?" Lily ventured, her voice a sprinkle of humor against the weight of the moment. Jack shrugged, the barest hint of a grin surfacing, echoing a mix of "let's wing it" and "I've got a plan." With the gentle rustling of leaves serving as nature's applause, they took that vital first step, setting off into uncharted territory, hand in hand like a duo from a buddy cop flick where romance unexpectedly crashes the party. Their first adventure together was an impromptu picnic that could only be described as a culinary disaster of epic proportions. The sandwich bread, more akin to cardboard than to a bakery delight, crumbled under the weight of soggy lettuce and a dubious smear of what they could only hope was mayonnaise. Jack's laughter filled the air, a genuine burst that sent a few nearby birds scattering, while Lily rolled her eyes in mock disbelief. "I think we might have just invented a new food group," she joked, gesturing toward the dubious meal. The ambience, rich with giggles and the scent of freshly cut grass, masked the food catastrophe. They were just two friends, navigating the twists and turns of rekindled emotions, and it felt vibrantly alive. As the days unfurled, their relationship morphed like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon, shedding the clumsy remnants of the past. They traded deep secrets and silly memes as though they were exchanging heirloom treasures, revitalizing their bond with every late-night conversation that flowed into the wee hours. Each shared laugh echoed in their hearts, banishing the ghosts of former heartbreaks, while comic book references sprinkled in like confetti, reminding them of the absurdity of life. Who knew their journey would resemble a motion picture montage, moments strung together like beads on a fragile necklace. With each passing day, their friendship deepened, woven intricately with threads of trust, humor, and deliciously awkward silences, now filled with electric possibilities. The transformation wasn't without its bumps. Like a roller coaster, it had its ups and downs. One rainy afternoon, as they darted between raindrops and puddles that threatened to swallow their sneakers, Lily's heart raced not from the thrill of their playful escapades, but from an unexpected anxiety. What if we ruin everything? She blurted out, the gray sky seeming to empathize with her fears. Jack, ever the soothing force, brushed a raindrop from her cheek with a grin that framed his handsome features. We might just be the most charming disaster this side of a rom-com. And in that moment, with their laughter mingling with the distant rumble of thunder, they realized that vulnerability wasn't a weakness, but an exhilarating part of their blossoming connection. As summer eased into autumn, their newfound partnership blossomed fully, vivid, with color like the turning leaves. Those lazy afternoons transformed into starlit escapades, where they danced under the moonlight with wild abandon, humming tunes that blended the familiar with the enchanting. With every shared glance laden with promise, they reveled in the delicious irony. A partnership born from the ashes of old love, rising anew like a phoenix that had seen a few comedies on Netflix. Perhaps their journey was less about destination and more about the whimsical, chaotic exploration of their hearts as they navigated this new path with minds as open as a pop-up book. Thus, hand in hand, they discovered that sometimes love does indeed get another chance, especially when it comes wrapped in the blanket of friendship, cozy, familiar, and just a little bit magical. In the sleepy hamlet of Valehaven, where the roads meander like lost thoughts and flower petals dance on gentle breezes, Alara stood on her creaky porch, her flute resting against her hip. The air was thick with the scent of blooming honeysuckle, intoxicating yet bittersweet, much like the memories swirling in her mind. With with the annual community festival fast approaching. Her heart fluttered between anticipation and nostalgia. The villagers, bustling about like busy bees, reminded her of the vibrant colors in one of Orion's paintings, splashed with passion and chaos. She had once been the muse behind those strokes, yet nostalgia has a cruel sense of humor. It can turn a joyful memory into a bittersweet echo, much like a song stuck on repeat at the most inconvenient moment. Cue the collective groan of an 80s rock ballad lingering on the radio. Alara closed her eyes, and for a moment she could almost hear the laughter shared with Orion, feel the warmth of their summer evenings, the way they harmonized like the perfect duet, saxophones and flutes dancing together, rather than clashing like a cat fight. Every note of their former love played back in her mind like a record player stuck on a scratch. The melody faded, but not forgotten. She could practically hear him teasing her about her obsession with old record players. Stick to painting, my dear, not music, unless it's just the sound of blissful silence. She half laughed, snorting as if she had just inhaled a particularly pungent cheese. Those moments felt like an entire concert series, each performance more electrifying than the last, yet now reduced to a solitary aria that echoed through the hollows of her heart. Stepping into the vibrant arena of the festival preparations, the village transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds, a cacophony of laughter, sizzling street food, and children giggling, dodging between fluttering banners bright enough to blind a raccoon. The essence of roasted chestnuts filled the air, mingling with the tangy scent of lemonade, forming an aromatic concoction that danced playfully in her nostrils. As she tuned her flute, the rhythmic clinking of glasses and the shouts of jovial townsfolk began to blend into an inviting serenade, a stark contrast to the hollow silence that cloaked her evenings. Yet beneath the elements of joy, a flicker of uncertainty sparked within her. What if Orion was still out there, somewhere within the very fabric of the crowd, crafting a new palette that could match the vibrancy of their shared past? Alara's heart raced like a roller coaster as she rehearsed her performance in her mind, but her thoughts kept spiraling back to Orion. His gentle hands, skilled with a paintbrush, could create emotions on canvas that flowed like the very notes she played. Irony twisted in her gut like a sour candy. She could play 1,000 melodies, yet none could paint the picture of their love, the one that still simmered like a hidden volcano ready to erupt. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, like something straight out of an old Disney movie gone rogue. The pulled strings of her heart began to pluck at her resolve. The festival grew closer with each tick of the clock, and the bitter taste of old regrets mingled with the potpourri of hope swirling around her, thick as fog on a rainy day, with a deep breath that felt like inhaling courage mixed with a hint of desperation. Alara stepped back into the vibrant embrace of the festival. The laughter around her buzzed like bees, sweet and stinging at the same time. The melody of her life, once lost in the abyss of broken dreams, found a new rhythm in the chaos. Perhaps this festival was not just a celebration of community, but a second chance, a rekindling of forgotten melodies, waiting to play again. And just maybe, as the stars began to twinkle overhead like mischievous winks from the universe, she would find that familiar face in the crowd, and their song, despite the years and the heartaches, would rise again. A haunting yet beautiful refrain that could bridge those aching years. The sun hung low in the sky, painting the bustling festival in hues of warm gold and fiery orange. Laughter danced through the air like confetti, intertwining with the aroma of sweet candied apples and sizzling sausages grilling on open flames. Alara wove through the crowd, her heart alive with the electric thrill of the celebration surrounding her, a stark contrast to the heavy weight of her past. There, amidst the colorful stalls and jubilant faces, she caught a glimpse of a familiar aura, one that sent a shiver down her spine. It was Orion, a figure now draped in the elegance of an accomplished artist, radiating an energy that was both intoxicating and terrifying, like standing too close to an open flame. As Alara approached, time seemed to warp, everything else faded, and it felt as if their very presence created its own universe. He caught her gaze, and nary a word was spoken, but their smiles exchanged volumes, a series of unvoiced confessions and desperate longings hiding behind the crinkle of their eyes. The moment was electric, like a final scene in a rom-com just before the credits roll. But lurking beneath the surface was a tide of unresolved feelings, thicker than the clouds gathering on a stormy day. Jealousy and regret loomed large, wrapping around their hearts as tightly as a burrito, delicious, yet potentially painful if mishandled. For a heartbeat, Alara was transported back in time, their shared history flooding her senses like the smell of popcorn at the movies, oddly comforting yet tinged with nostalgia. She recalled whispered secrets beneath summer stars, reckless promises carved into tree bark, and the bittersweet thrill of their first kiss, sweetened with the syrup of youthful dreams. Yet the memory crackled with the pain of what came after, the silence that followed their rushed goodbye, the chasm of unspoken words that had since widened between them. And now, standing just inches apart, that gap felt like the Grand Canyon, daunting and echoing with the ghosts of missed opportunities. How could they bridge such an expanse with mere smiles as the festival thrummed to life around them? A jester juggling flaming torches, children shrieking over spinning rides. Alara felt her heart race with both excitement and dread. Their laughter echoed like music in the distance, reminding her of happier times, but marred by the weight of the unsaid. She longed to grasp his hand, intertwining their fingers like vines, but deep down she cringed, fearing the heartbreak hidden just below the surface. The irony was delicious. Here they were, two souls fizzing with chemistry, yet shackled by emotional baggage that would put any airline to shame. Each fleeting second stretched into eternity, filled with possibilities as rich as the stall displaying vibrant paintings that swirled like a kaleidoscope of their shared dreams. At last, they exchanged a few words, their voices blending with the background symphony of the festival, a soft melody of hope tinged with melancholy. Even as the crowd pulsed around them, Alara felt as if they stood on an island, both sacred and tumultuous, surrounded by the waves of their past. The bittersweet taste of regret lingered in the air, sharp and intoxicating, mingling with the sweet scent of roasted marshmallows. As Orion flashed her a smile that sent her heart racing, she realized their paths had crossed for a reason. The universe perhaps winking in approval. Hey, remember those unresolved feelings? Here's another chance. With every moment that passed, they both yearned for more, a thread tethering them together in a dance that neither dared to lead, yet instinctively knew was only just beginning. In the dim light of her art studio, where the scent of turpentine mingled with the sweet tang of old canvases, Alara sat surrounded by half-finished paintings that whispered ghostly tales of what once was. Her heart was a chaotic palette, splattered with memories of laughter, love, and quiet moments turned into bittersweet echoes. The soft thrum of a distant city drifted through her open window, yet her mind was entrapped in a maze of yesterdays, where Orion's smile lingered like a haunting refrain. With every stroke of her brush, she yearned to paint the words she could never say, colors blending into an unrecognizable swirl that reflected her turmoil. It was ridiculous, really, how she could drown in memories while the world outside pulsated with life, as if the universe had decided to be cruel and keep them apart in the most ironic of ways, like a sitcom where the main characters just never quite figure it out, and the audience is left shouting at the screen, "Come on." Meanwhile, miles away, in his dimly lit, garage-turned music studio, Orion wrestled with the ghosts of the past that danced around him like pop-up ads on a sketchy website. Guitars leaned weapon-like against the walls, their strings awaiting the touch of a hand that had known too much regret. Every note he played filled the air with an ache, a melody that resonated deeply within the caverns of his heart, reminding him of the moments when laughter and love had bloomed like wildflowers after a storm. Why can't I just hit the reset button? He wondered, strumming hopelessly on the strings, hoping to pluck out a tune that could soothe the old wounds that kept opening like a bad scab. Each sound mirrored the inner tumult as he navigated the derelict ship of his emotions, grappling with the realization that he had played his cards wrong, bungle after bungle, resembling a tragic game of Monopoly, where he had lost everything because he traded Park Place for a lousy chance card, just as Alara poured vibrant hues onto her canvas, a particular shade evoking the warmth of early summer days they shared. A new misunderstanding bubbled to the surface, like occasionally tasting sock-flavored jelly beans from an old candy jar. Words left unspoken hung between them in the air, thick like fog, dense with unaddressed grievances and fears. It was as if each glance shared had become a territorial dispute, or worse, a silent game of hide-and-seek conducted with the subtlety of a marching band on parade. Friends and family could sense the tension. Half-hearted laughter during game nights turned into awkward silence, like the pop of a balloon at a birthday party gone awry. Their absence in each other's lives had twisted into a cruel reminder that love, though seemingly a safe harbor, could also be the tempestuous sea, tricky enough to shipwreck even the most seasoned sailors. As the days slipped by, both Alara and Orion found themselves enveloped in their creations, seeking refuge in the things that once connected them. Alara's brushes danced with passion, each movement a desperate plea to encapsulate the love they had shared. Yet her biggest masterpiece remained blank, echoing the emptiness where Orion's laughter used to fill the silence. Meanwhile, his guitar strings vibrated with his longing, each song sounding like a heart-wrenching ballad, but ending with an unresolved chord that left listeners feeling inexplicably sad, like a fashion faux pas ingrained in their souls. They struggled to mend what had frayed, their artistry both a balm and a bitter reminder of the distance that had grown. It was almost poetic, really, the way life forced them to confront their emotions in the most creative spirals before they could find their way back to one another, as if the universe had decided to throw them into a grand Shakespearean tragedy where the punchline was yet to be delivered. And thus, amid the clinking of paintbrushes and the twang of guitar strings, both Alara and Orion faced the profound irony of their situation. There they were, two souls, wrapped in their respective crafts, allowing their hearts to be bared, yet failing to reach out to each other, both teetering on the edge of vulnerability. The very things that had once united them art, and music had become the battleground upon which clarity and confusion waged war. If only they could see that tangled within the layers of paint and melodies was the essence of their shared story, waiting for a revival, like a rock band getting back together for one last tour. As the universe conspired to teach them about healing, they both stood at the precipice, inching toward their own epiphanies, only to discover that sometimes love isn't about finding the right words, but about being brave enough to create a new canvas together, one messy stroke at a time. As dusk descended upon the festival, the air crackled with energy, a blend of excitement and anxiety thick enough to cut with a knife. Lanterns flickered like timid stars, illuminating the gathering crowd, who buzzed with the sweet scent of caramel apples and the sharp tang of pretzel bites. On the stage, Alara stood with her heart thudding like a bass drum, gripping her guitar so tightly her knuckles turned pale. With a deep breath, she let the world around her fade, channeling the storm of emotions roiling inside: fear, nostalgia, and buried love. She began to strum, her voice emerging like mist in the cool evening, each note a stitch in the tapestry of her heart, binding her past and present together once more, unsparing in its honesty and fervor. The haunting melody hung in the air, wrapping the audience in a cocoon of unspoken truths. Alara's voice soared and dipped, a roller coaster of vulnerability that even the most stoic faces couldn't resist. Orion stood at the periphery, frozen, as if he'd just walked into a scene straight out of a rom-com, the kind where the heartbreak is as real as the nachos being devoured by the couple in front of him. With every word, every emotional crescendo, he felt his defenses slowly disintegrate, his heart beating in tandem with the rhythm of her song, the soundtrack of their intertwined lives playing loudly in his mind. It was the kind of music that could make a statue weep, and it took all his resolve not to bolt into the spotlight and make a fool of himself in front of everyone, especially her. When the final note sank into the hushed crowd, the world seemed to pause, held captive by the raw intensity of Alara's performance. It was both a release and an invitation, a call to arms for honesty he couldn't ignore. With a steely resolve, Orion stepped forward, each stride heavy with the weight of what he wanted to say, but hadn't said before. The air crackled between them like the moment before lightning strikes, charged with an uneasy energy that called for confrontation. He felt like a contestant on a surreal game show, where one wrong answer could lead to heartache, or if the stars aligned, reunion. They found themselves face to face, their shared history swirling around them like a tempest in an old, dusty attic. Orion, with his heart in his throat, found the courage to speak. Yet his words stumbled out like wayward sheep from a gate. You know, every time you sing, it feels like you're pulling me back from the edge of a very high cliff, he managed. She laughed softly, a sound that reverberated through him, chasing away the dark clouds of doubt. But beneath the humor lay a raw honesty, a simultaneous acknowledgement of the fears and dreams that had kept them apart, a truth-telling, knuckle-biting moment, reminiscent of a scene from their favorite movie, where two people realize they've been fooling themselves all along. As they stood beneath the colorful lanterns, illuminated by a warm golden glow, it was as if the universe conspired to push them together. The tension dissolved like sugar in tea as they let go of all their fears, sobbing and laughing at how ridiculous they had been. Two star-crossed lovers navigating the maze of their own making. It was a reconciliation that tasted bittersweet, like a drink too strong, but necessary for their souls to find peace. Orion reached for Alara's hand, their fingers intertwining like the chords of her guitar, sound and silence finally in harmony. With a shared breath, they stepped away from the storm within and into a new dawn, where love flickered in the darkness, refusing to fade and awaiting to be rediscovered time and again, under the warm embrace of a sunset that painted the sky in hues of orange and lavender. Alara and Orion stood side by side, the gentle breeze ruffling their hair like a playful spirit. The air buzzed with the sweet scent of lilacs from the garden nearby, a nostalgic reminder of the sunny days spent laughing together. They both felt a surge of clarity wash over them, like the dawn of a new day breaking through the night's gloom. Here, amidst nature's spectacle, they could finally confront the tangled web of past hurts, acknowledging that love, like a phoenix, can rise beautifully from the ashes of misunderstandings. With a glint of mischief in her eye, Alara turned to Orion, her voice laced with humor. So, what do you think, Van Gogh? Should we turn our canvas into a battlefield for our artistic revival? Orion chuckled, recalling the time Alara had convinced him to paint their apartment walls in what could only be described as embracing your inner rainbow. But now, standing in the presence of rekindled chemistry, their bond was the real masterpiece, ready to be painted with vibrant strokes of creativity and laughter. They both understood that old grudges could be brushed away, much like the paint thinning into memories with every stroke of a brush. As they gathered their supplies, bright tubes of paint, brushes of varying sizes, and an expansive canvas that seemed to whisper promises of transformation. Each item felt charged with potential. With the first dip of the brush into the paint, the squish against the palette was like a heartbeat, echoing the rhythm of an unexpected reunion. They laughed, debated color schemes, and even started a good-natured rivalry over who could create the nastiest splatter. The air was thick with the smell of linseed oil and fresh paint, reminders that even the muckiest processes can yield something beautiful. Step by step, they moved closer to each other as they painted, letting their hands brush against one another, igniting the spark that had once ebbed low. Each layer of color represented a bit of their history: blue for the sadness, vibrant red for passion, and sunny yellow to symbolize hope against everything that had tried to dim their light. With each line drawn, Alara found herself entranced by Orion's focused gaze as he worked tirelessly to ensure the whites blended just right. That moment felt like the peak of a 90s rom-com, where the protagonist realizes they don't need to be perfect. They just need to try together, imperfections and all. As the masterpiece emerged, it became apparent that their story resembled the canvas before them, a fusion of chaos and beauty, mistakes and triumphs. They shared knowing smiles and playful banter, realizing that the act of creating art together mirrored their journey of reconciliation. In the backdrop, the sun dipped below the horizon, flaring like the final scene of an epic movie, dramatic, heartwarming, and impossibly hopeful. With a chuckle, Alara quipped, "Who knew our love would be a mixed media project? Just remember, darling, no finger painting." And amid the laughter and splashes of paint, their hearts intertwined once more, ready to embrace the future with open arms, as vibrant as their newly crafted creation. In the quaint village of Eldenwood, where gossip spread faster than butter in the summer sun, Alara and Kale were once the pride of the town, like peanut butter and jelly on a Sunday picnic. Their laughter danced through the cobblestone streets, a melody everyone hummed along to. But alas, the sweet symphony of their romance grew sour, as misunderstandings crept in like winter's chill after an unanticipated warm spell. Alara's bright laughter faded, replaced by a sharp silence that echoed in the corners of their favorite cafe, where the scents of fresh-baked bread and brewing coffee now felt more like a sour memory than a comforting embrace. Villagers leaned in closer, whispering conspiracies about the lovebirds becoming mere shadows of their former selves, birds with broken wings, flapping helplessly while the world watched with bated breath. The air crackled with tension, and the village felt like a stage, the townsfolk casting wary glances, unsure whether the curtains would rise again for the lovers or come crashing down for good. It was one fateful afternoon, as storm clouds grumbled overhead like an ornery old man, that the final crack in their bond revealed itself. Alara's eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, burned with anger as Kale recounted a moment of jealousy that had festered like a sore. "You think I care what the baker's daughter says?" he had yelled, his voice echoing off the village walls like a cannon shot, startling even the squirrels nesting nearby. It was the kind of scene that would have made for an excellent blockbuster movie, complete with dramatic music and slow-motion camera work. But for the couple, it felt more like a tragedy straight out of Shakespeare, everyone knowing it would end in tears. The bakery's sweet aroma turned bitter in the aftermath of their heated words, and the villagers could almost taste the tension in the air, thick and choking like a stale bread roll stuck in one's throat. Days turned into weeks, and the rift between Alara and Kale seemed destined to become a legendary tale of woe, a story told by candlelight to amuse children and scare them away from love. The village square, once bustling with their playful banter, grew heavy with unspoken words and awkward silences, like a balloon on the verge of bursting. Friends, meanwhile, donned their best detective hats, trying to decode the cryptic signals being sent back and forth. "Did you hear? Ilara bought a bouquet of flowers from the market, but only the wilting ones," one neighbor exclaimed, half amusement and half concern, marveling at the irony of a once vibrant love blooming into a full-fledged botanical funeral. It became glaringly apparent that their relationship had transformed, twisted by hurt feelings and miscommunication, into a version of itself that resembled an old, dusty book left on a crowded shelf, forgotten, but just maybe worth reopening. But kindness, like a persistent weed growing through cracks in the pavement, began to push its way back into the lives of Alara and Kale. It was during the village's annual harvest festival, a riot of colors and scents reminiscent of a cheerful Pixar film, that they were reluctantly thrown into the same orbit once more. Amidst the laughter and music, the aroma of spiced cider wafted through the air, coaxing memories from their hearts like a warm hug. A clumsy juggler, possibly more inspired by Marin's methods than any professional training, knocked over his props, sending apples tumbling straight into Alara's lap. With an unintentional grin rising like the sun from behind a cloud, Alara looked up, catching Kale's eye, and for a moment the bitterness that had marked their relationship vanished like popcorn during a midnight binge. It was in that fleeting connection that hope sparked anew, like a flame flickering to life after the storm. As the night wore on, laughter mingled with the sound of fiddles, giving life to an old romance, as if a rusty key had finally found its lock. Their exchanges shifted from barbs and jabs to playful teasing, reminiscent of their earlier days when every word tasted like honey. Just as they started to reclaim what was lost, a wild idea took root. Friendship might just be the lifeline they needed to heal their shattered bond. With each shared smile and each moment of understanding, the foundation of their relationship morphed again, and the idea of allies, not just lovers, began to take shape. Perhaps, they thought, in the rubble of their past, they could forge something stronger together, an unbreakable alliance that would have even their most critical friends singing their praises instead of exchanging worried glances. In the quiet corners of Eldenwood, amidst whispers of romance rekindled, a new saga was ready to unfold, one bubbling with the promise of laughter, resilience, and a newfound joy that would leave the village buzzing for years to come. In the shadows of an oak tree that had witnessed both the sweet whispers of their love and the bitter echoes of their arguments, Alara and Kale found themselves face to face. The air was thick with uncertainty, the sun casting playful shadows that danced on their faces, almost mocking them. "So, here we are," Kale said, his voice a mixture of bravado and vulnerability. Like a soldier preparing for a battle he wasn't sure he could win. Alara took a deep breath, the scent of damp earth mingling with the fresh promise of spring, filling her lungs with courage. They had both buried their grievances deep, believing that frost would thaw the ache in their hearts. But now they stood ready to uproot the weeds of misunderstanding that had taken hold between them. As they began to share their stories, the once familiar terrain of their relationship transformed into a minefield of raw emotions. Kale's voice wavered as he spoke of late nights spent worrying about Alara, while she recounted the quiet moments filled with a longing that echoed in the hollow spaces of her chest. Each revelation was a carefully pried open drawer of secrets, revealing the tangled mess of love and resentment. A wave of irony washed over them as they realized that the very feelings that had once pushed them apart were anchored in the care they still held for each other. It was as if they had been pulled into a reality show titled Lovers Confess. The truth will set you free, or at least make you cringe. And they were both reluctant stars, desperately hoping for the best season finale. With every word exchanged, the tension in the air shifted, almost palpable and electric, as if the very atoms were rearranging the fabric of their relationship. They moved from accusations to laughter, warm and bubbling forth like a pot of stew that had finally reached a rolling boil. "Remember that time I accidentally dyed my hair green, and you said I looked like a walking avocado?" Alara chuckled, wiping a stray tear that had escaped during their heartfelt conversation. Kale grinned, the corners of his mouth crinkling up like a piece of parchment. And for a moment, it felt as if they were transported back in time to the early days of their courtship. A time when avocado heads and silly jokes overshadowed all the seriousness that life later brought. They began to see that their past wasn't solely defined by hurt, but also by the moments of joy that weaved them together. Slowly but surely, their hearts began to thaw, revealing the golden core of friendship that had always lurked beneath the jagged surface of their romantic discord. As they reminisced about simpler times, the sweet smell of nostalgia wafted through their conversation, wrapping around them like a favorite childhood blanket. They made the decision to put aside their former roles of lovers and become allies instead, their own version of the Avengers, assembling to confront the forces that had driven them apart. With each laugh shared, each story told, they forged a new battleground where trust could bloom once again, resilient and unexpected, like a flower sprouting through a crack in a concrete sidewalk. Remarkably, the absence of romance felt less like a loss and more like a new beginning, blank and inviting, like an empty canvas awaiting the first stroke of paint. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow that danced through the leaves above them, Alara and Kale stood on the brink of something beautifully fragile, yet hopeful. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be smooth, perhaps riddled with the occasional pothole of miscommunication. But they felt their hearts beat in sync, like a well-rehearsed tune. Friendship, they realized, was not a consolation prize, but a powerful bond far more resilient than the fleeting nature of romance. With a shared grin, they promised to face the future together, equipped with the tools of communication and empathy, ready to navigate both the storms and the sunshine. As they turned to leave, the lingering echoes of unresolved grievances faded, replaced by the steady rhythm of their renewed connection. An unlikely alliance forged in the fires of misunderstanding, and tempered by the understanding that love, in its many forms, remains their truest treasure. In the sun-drenched village of Halcyon, the air hummed with the gossip of old crones, their voices like shrill crows cawing from the marketplace. They clucked their tongues as they watched Alara and Kale navigate the tender waters of their renewed friendship, blooming like wildflowers among the brambles of mistrust. Love had morphed into something else, but the villagers, masters of fabrication, spun tales of betrayal and new lovers simply because a male and female dared to coexist in harmony. Alara felt their stares prick her skin like 1,000 tiny needles, each one whispering intrusive doubts into her heart. She stood under the midday sun, the heat swirling around her, feeling more exposed than a newly hatched chick under the scrutiny of a hawk. Yet they navigated their days arm in arm, hoping to drown out the clamor of the village's suspicions with laughter and shared memories of the past. The distant hum of their banter, a shield against rumors spiraling out of control. But then, like a rogue wave crashing upon the shore. A rumor rolled in with ominous intent. Alara's heart lurched when she overheard two women, their voices reminiscent of rusty hinges, cackling about how Cale was seen with another. A pretty stranger with a laugh like wind chimes and hair that shimmered like silver in the evening sun. The ground felt unsteady beneath her feet as the laughter faded, leaving behind a hollow echo that resonated in her chest. In that moment, insecurity wrapped around her like poison ivy, constricting her thoughts, whispering lies of unworthiness that clawed at her resolve. What if Cale had been only pretending, a master of illusions, while he danced off into the sunset with someone new? It felt absurd, like thinking Frodo would trade the Shire for a life of office work. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it blossomed in her heart as vividly as the flowers she loved. With each passing day, Alara wrestled with her feelings, a tangled mess of trust and trepidation that made her stomach churn like the churn of 1,000 butter churners at the village fest. The world blurred around her, dulled by the weight of unspoken words, and the vibrant colors of Halcyon faded to muted tones. Laughter rang out from the neighboring cottage, yet it felt distant, as if she were an outsider peering through the fog of her own insecurities at a gathering she was no longer a part of. Why couldn't she just confront Cale, lay her heart bare like a deck of cards for him to see? Instead, she tiptoed around her feelings, afraid they would leap out like a jack-in-the-box, startling her and crashing their delicate friendship before it could fully flourish. She couldn't help but wonder, was the friendship worth risking her heart? Or was she merely a pawn in a game of love she didn't quite understand? Meanwhile, Cale, oblivious to the storm brewing within Alara, was navigating his own treacherous waters. He sensed a shift in her demeanor, like a sudden drop in temperature before a summer storm, and knew he had to act. The wild rumors swirled around like confetti in the wind. Each colorful piece taunted him. Was he really losing her? Resolute, he sought Alara out, ready to cast aside the shadows of doubt with words forged in his heart's furnace. He found her in their favorite meadow, the scent of honeysuckle sweet and intoxicating, and he took a deep breath, hoping to channel his inner Aragorn noble, direct, and unshakable, with raw honesty hanging in the air like the heavy scent of impending rain. He poured out his devotion, vowing he would never betray the bond they had kindled anew. In that moment, vulnerability blossomed between them, as fragile and beautiful as the daisies swaying in the breeze. Alara could see the truth in Cale's eyes, a fierce determination burning bright, more illuminating than the lanterns lining the cobbled streets at dusk. With every word he spoke, her doubt began to evaporate like dew on a summer morning, revealing clarity in the chaos of her emotions. They talked until the sun dipped low, hues of orange and purple setting the sky ablaze, and she felt weight lift from her shoulders as they forged an unbreakable pact, an alliance stronger than any sword. In that meadow, with nature as their witness, Alara and Kale stepped beyond lovers and rumors, embracing a friendship steeped in trust and resilience, a story of triumph written in the laughter and tears of two souls finding their way home to each other. In the thick of a storm that seemed to mirror the turmoil inside her heart, Alara squared her shoulders and strode into the dimly lit tavern where Kale lingered, nursing a drink as if it were a potion of forgetfulness. The air was heavy with the scent of ale and the chatter of unsung heroes hitting their mark or missing it entirely. She took a deep breath, tasting the bitter mix of courage and fear, a cocktail that would put any elven brew to shame. Kale, we need to talk, she declared, her voice slicing through the laughter and clinking glasses like a sword ready for battle. She looked fierce, yet vulnerable, a warrior dressed not in armor, but in raw emotion and determination, ready to confront not just Kale, but the demons of their shared past. Kale's brow furrowed as he looked up, surprise dousing his customary nonchalance like cold water on a raging fire. Oh, what's this? The lovely Alara confronting me. Is this a new trend? His attempt at humor fell flat against the storm brewing in her stormy blue eyes. The bar around them faded into oblivion. Time stopped as the weight of unspoken grievances loomed overhead, heavy as a leaden sky. The tension crackled in the air, palpable as the fizz in a shaken beverage, hinting at an explosion that both of them could feel hovering on the edge of oblivion. Alara stepped closer, crossing the invisible line that had kept them at odds. A chasm of hurt spanned only by the bridge of their unmet expectations. Passion collided with pain in that moment, until everything spilled forth like an overripe fruit bursting from its skin. You think it's easy for me? Alara's words tumbled out, each one laced with the jagged edges of her fumbling pride. Kale, his arms crossed defensively, struggled against her barrage, yet his emotions were like a tidal wave threatening to crash over him. Do you really want to know? I'm terrified of losing you. How ironic, she thought, to find truth in pain, to see clarity through the murky waters of misunderstanding. It was like discovering that what lay beneath the surface of their friendship was a treacherous, beautiful ocean, rather than the simple puddle they had both been wading through, one that reflected their insecurities instead of their strengths. As tempers simmered, a new realization dawned upon them. Most of their fears, like lurking shadows, had concealed the good in each other. The echo of their harsh words faded into a poignant silence, one that smelled faintly of spilled beer and something spicy. Maybe it was the sizzling platter of fried snacks nearby that reminded them life continued, even as they battled with their spiraling emotions. In that silence, Alara noticed the little things, the softened lines on Kale's face, the way his knuckles were white against the wood of the table, and then, with a theatrical flourish that would make Shakespeare proud, Kale extended a hand, not to silence her, but to hold her in solidarity, a promise of something deeper than forgotten grievances. In a rush of warmth, Alara took his hand, and just like that, the ice between them thawed, revealing the fertile earth beneath their wounds. They exchanged heartfelt apologies, each one a mini armor-piercing moment against the shadows of the past, like moments in a rom-com where peace finally reigned after the big misunderstanding. Kale looked into Alara's eyes, and for the first time, he saw not just his fears, but the essence of the ally she could be, a true partner in crime, equipped for life's adventures. Their laughter returned, a ridiculous blend of joy and relief, peppered with inside jokes from their tumultuous history. And perhaps, they both mused, perhaps even broken things can mend, forge alliances, and transform lovers into partners, if only they dared brave the tempest together. Amidst the charred remnants of what once was a fiery romance, Alara and Kale stood like two warriors emerging from a battle, their hearts still smoldering, but their spirits resolute. Gone were the whispers of hurt and betrayal, replaced now by the sweet, heady aroma of possibility, like fresh bread baking in the early morning sun. They learned that a deeper bond was waiting for them, one not marked by candlelit dinners and stolen kisses, but by laughter echoing through the village square and shared strategy sessions over mugs of spiced cider. Life had transformed them into unexpected allies, much like Batman and Robin, but perhaps with fewer capes and more practical clothing. Still, the villagers were enthralled, watching their metamorphosis with keen eyes, as though they were pets witnessing their owners evolve into something greater than either could fathom. The air buzzed with a distinctly new energy, an exciting mix of camaraderie and determination that had the locals breaking out their popcorn, much like eagerly awaiting the next episode of a hit series. Alara, her auburn hair dancing in the wind, felt a strange thrill coursing through her veins as she and Kale began to share their dreams and fears openly, like explorers charting uncharted waters on a map that used to hide in the attic. Communication had shifted from stilted and awkward to warm and inviting, an essential bridge that took them from broken lovers to devoted friends. Their conversations held the power of two swords being forged anew, metal clanging together in the heated fires of understanding. There, in the forge of their renewed alliance, they began to sculpt plans to empower the village, turning their pain into passion and their scars into stories of triumph. The villagers marveled at this unexpected alliance, rallying around Alara and Kale like characters in an epic tale, complete with cheering crowds and spirited debates outside the village tavern, where once gossip clung to the air like fog before dawn. Now, a vibrational hum of hope filled the spaces between them. Each shared glance and purposeful action became a message louder than clanging bells announcing a festival. As they worked side by side to establish gardens, bridges, and learning centers, it became evident that kindness and teamwork had constructed an invisible fortress around them, one where judgment could not penetrate. Ironically, by letting go of their past grievances and embracing friendship, they had unwittingly become the heroes of their own story. They just forgot to wear the tights. Their legacy began to take shape, much like a potter molding clay, not quite perfect at first, but undeniably beautiful in its transformation. The strong fragrances of freshly tilled earth and colorful blooms sprang to life around them, while the sounds of laughter and joyous chatter replaced discord in the village. Kale's boisterous laughter mingled with Alara's melodious voice as they hosted community meetings, inspiring citizens with visions of a united front against their challenges. Each successful project, each moment of progress, was a brick in the path of healing, tested by the flames of their former relationship. It was as though their old selves had become the very charcoal that deepened the warmth of the fire, fueling a sturdy new framework for their community. Alara stood atop the highest hill, overlooking the village one crisp afternoon, feeling the winds of change whip through her hair like 1,000 tiny, jubilant dancers. Her heart swelled as she glanced over at Kale, who was busy explaining the benefits of composting to a group of children, enthusiasm sparking in every word. She felt an undeniable kinship with him, not just as a friend, but as a partner, creating ripples of change in a world that had once threatened to drown them. Like the fabled phoenix rising from the ashes, together they discovered that true strength lay not in the romantic tension of their past, but in the solid groundwork of friendship that held them up. With each passing day, they forged ahead, not just as former lovers or even as allies, but as torchbearers shining a light for others who dared to rise from their own ashes, ready to celebrate the beauty of resilience in a community reborn. In the ancient village of Eldoria, where the cobblestone streets whispered tales of yesteryear, and the scent of fresh-baked bread hung in the air like the ghost of a friendly neighbor, two brothers stood divided. Dorian, with his raven-black hair slicked back like a would-be prince, wore his ambition like a fine cloak, while Leif, wild-haired and rebellious, meandered through life like a leaf caught in a mischievous breeze. Their childhood, filled with laughter and mud fights, now felt like a distant dream, overshadowed by the simmering tension that twisted between them like a coiled serpent. Each day brought with it the stench of rivalry, the bitter aftertaste of envy seeping into every interaction, while village folk watched with bated breath, popcorn in hand, as the saga of the Dorian and Leif took center stage, the brothers more engrossed in their conflict than they were in the well-being of their ancestral legacy. Misunderstandings had festered like a stubborn sore, feeding the unyielding feud. Dorian, driven by an insatiable hunger for their father's approval, had become a master of the art of ambition, often forgetting that love was not measured by gold or status, but by the bonds of family. Meanwhile, Leif craved independence, yearning to break free from the chains that held him to a destiny he never chose. Like a dog barking at a passing car, he resisted what he perceived as Dorian's suffocating influence. The brothers' skirmishes became more frequent, like the raucous clashing of swords, echoing through the village and reaching every ear, while spectators whispered tales of how love could turn to bitterness quicker than milk left out in the sun. As discord swelled like a dark storm cloud, the village of Eldoria transformed before their very eyes. The vibrant festivals that once overflowed with laughter and music were now punctuated by awkward silences and downcast eyes. Merchants traded glances laden with worry, unsure if the brothers' rivalry would consume their livelihoods as it had consumed the harmony of their beloved home. The fields lay fallow, neglected amid turmoil, and the once bustling market square felt like the aftermath of a pop concert turned riot. Echoes of lost joy still lingering in the air. Amidst all this chaos, the brothers stood at a crossroads, their hearts heavy, torn between pride and the love that had once knitted them together. In the dim light of the family barn, the smell of aged wood mixed with the mustiness of hay wrapped around them like a thick blanket of nostalgia. It was here, surrounded by the remnants of their childhood broken toys, dusty memories, and faded laughter, they faced the consequences of their choices. Dorian's voice rang out, harsh yet tinged with desperation, as he accused Leif of casting aside their family's legacy, while Leif shot back, hot-headed and frustrated, claiming Dorian was a puppet dancing to their father's whims. Irony dripped from their words like melted ice cream on a hot summer day. Two brothers bound by blood now preferred warfare over kinship. The churning sea of emotions swelled, peaking like a climax from a heroic epic, each brother standing resolute, yet so very lost. As tensions reached a boiling point, the air crackled with an electricity that promised change. Dorian and Leif found themselves pausing, caught in the madness of their own devising, the duality of pride pressing down upon them like an anvil. It was then, like a sitcom moment waiting for a laugh track, that a sudden realization struck. Perhaps their legacy was not a battlefield, but a bridge waiting to be rebuilt. In that moment of clarity, they looked into each other's eyes and saw not foes, but kindred spirits, longing for understanding. With a tentative smile, Dorian reached out, and Leif, like a beat-up action hero learning to trust again, took his hand, igniting a spark of hope in the darkness, a reminder that even amidst chaos, forgiveness could lead to new beginnings. In the heart of a small village, where the sun hung stubbornly in the sky like an uninvited guest at a wedding, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Two brothers, Dorian and Leif, stood toe to toe, their voices rising like a tempest, gathering strength. "You're just waiting for me to fail," Dorian spat, his eyes ablaze with accusation, while Leif, arms crossed and jaw taut, retorted, "And you think I'd actually sabotage our crops? Is that how little you trust me?" Their arguing echoed off the stone walls of their home, blending with the distant sound of children playing unaware of the brewing storm. A storm that was not just of words, but of fate itself, as a drought loomed, threatening to dry up their hopes as easily as it would their fields. The days dragged on, the earth beneath their feet cracked and parched, like an old man's skin who had forgotten the meaning of moisture. The crops, once promising green rows of life, wilted in the fierce heat, turning brown and brittle. The villagers watched with mouths parched as their livelihoods withered like the grass underfoot. The villagers exchanged worried glances, whispering behind hands about the brothers' ongoing feud. Within that palpable weight of despair, Dorian, driven by anger, pointed an accusing finger at Leif, his voice tinged with disbelief. "You've done this to us. You want to watch me fail." The irony hung thick in the air. Their quarrel was the very thing sabotaging their chances of survival. Yet neither seemed willing to see the truth amidst their rising tempers. As if the universe had given a dark nod of approval, Dorian made a choice fueled by betrayal and the simmering heat of resentment. No longer would he entertain the notion of brotherhood. He decided to sever all ties, slicing through their bond with the sharpness of a scythe. "I'll manage on my own," he declared, the bravado in his voice cracking like the dry earth beneath him. And yet, amidst his declarations of independence, a flicker of doubt crept into his heart. He felt the gnawing tug of loss that went deeper than mere crops. It was a sinking feeling, like step on something wet and squishy in the dark, a rotten tomato of regret. And yet he pressed forward, not quite grasping how deep the divide had grown, and how dangerous such a resolve could become for them both. With every passing day, the brothers' refusal to reconcile painted their village in shades of doom. The air thickened with tension, an oppressive shroud that stifled laughter and joy, leaving only the bitter taste of despair. The village square, usually bustling with life and chatter, now sat as silent as a graveyard, filled with the fragrant scent of disappointment and anxiety, mingled with the occasional odor of sweat from villagers working desperately to save what little remained of their livelihoods. In the midst of this chaos, dread loomed larger than life, casting shadows longer than any argument could hope to achieve. The bittersweet irony still lingered. While one brother pointed fingers, the other withered from the lack of support they both so direly needed. It seemed that the drought was as much a reflection of their own parched hearts as it was a scourge of nature's making. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting the world in hues of desperation, Dorian wandered the empty fields, his heart heavy with regret. He could almost hear Leif's voice, a ghost in the whispering winds that seemed to mock him, asking, "What have we become?" That moment, standing amidst the ruined crops, Dorian felt an overwhelming surge of clarity. He longed for the simplicity of brotherly love, far more than the bitter taste of betrayal, which now wrapped around him like a chilling fog. Ironically, as he made his way back to the village, the familiar sound of laughter began to bubble up again, as if the impending doom was finally knotted in a bittersweet promise. Could it be that, amidst their tears of betrayal, new beginnings were waiting to break through the surface? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the village, an unexpected visitor arrived, her presence heralded by the rustling of leaves and the gentle hum of crickets. The elder sage, draped in robes that seemed to shimmer with whispers of ancient wisdom, stood before the brothers with an air of calm authority. "Gather round, ye squabbling kin," she beckoned, her voice smooth like aged whiskey, but with a sharpness that could slice through the tension. She spoke of a prophecy that chilled the air around them, one detailing a great storm that would rise up from the depths of the earth, threatening to drown their world, a reminder that perhaps, just perhaps, their petty squabbles paled in comparison to the coming tempest. The brothers exchanged glances, their hearts pounding like drums in their chests, sensing a looming truth beneath her words, like the first growl of thunder on the horizon before a downpour. It was in that moment of shared dread, the earthy smell of impending rain mingling with the sage's ancient incense, that the brothers felt the weight of their own storm, the one they had brewed over years of rivalry and resentment. Each recalled fragments of laughter and playful scuffles from their childhood, memories rich as the aroma of fresh-baked bread wafting through the kitchen. They had been comrades, partners in crime, conjuring wild adventures in the fields and forests. Now here they stood, estranged and stubborn, more like a pair of cats caught in a rainstorm than the brothers who once forged a bond stronger than iron. "What have we become?" came the haughty whisper of irony from one brother, a half-hearted jest meant to shatter the heaviness that hung between them. A joke only they understood, with hearts reluctantly nudged into motion by the sage's resonant words. The brothers' gazes softened, like the summertime clay ready to be molded once more. They recalled the joyous days when they would chase fireflies at dusk, bubbling with uncontainable laughter, unrestrained by the burdens adulthood brought. It was odd to think how years of strife had dulled their once bright spirits, leaving only shadows of what they could be. However, the rumble of thunder outside offered a bittersweet twist to the tale, reminding them that while storms may threaten, they also offer a strange kind of promise. They exchanged tentative smiles, the kind which still bore hints of discomfort, but felt surprisingly warm, as if they were donning an old coat from childhood, still perfectly tailored despite the dust of neglect. Then came the moment, as braces of rain began to drum upon the cottage roof, when they stood awkwardly, a pair of unsteady goats on a mountainside, reaching for one another, hesitant hands extended, fingers entwining like roots from a gnarled tree, seeking solace in that robust brotherly embrace that had long been forsaken. The initial awkwardness felt sharper than the chill of rain soaking through their garments. Yet there was a refreshing exhilaration in their reconciliation, akin to the first sip of hot cocoa on a frosty morning. The sage watched, her lips curved with the satisfaction of a well-timed plot twist in a beloved movie. "It's never too late to rewrite your story, boys," she softly murmured, echoing sentiments of tolerance and maturity that they'd seen in countless epics, whether they be on the screen or in the tomes of history. With their hearts aflame and the storm brewing both inside and out, the brothers finally felt the first stirrings of hope, a flickering candle flame on a gloomy night. They resolved, boldly this time, to confront the impending disaster together. Two warriors united against nature's wrath and their misjudged past. The sage's words echoed like a film's climactic score, urging them to transcend their quarrels and embrace their shared destiny. As the heavens opened and rain began to pour like a wash of reality over their quaint village, they prepared themselves for the challenges ahead, brothers once more, unyielding against whatever may come. Irony tinged the air. Who knew that a storm would be the catalyst for the real tempest to find its end? as they stepped forward into the uncertain future, rekindling the power of their bond like a phoenix arising from the ashes of old grievances. The day the storm rolled in, the sky stretched into an angry canvas of slate gray, punctuated by jagged flashes of lightning that danced like wild spirits unchained. Beneath this ominous spectacle, the small village held its breath, gathering like a clenched fist in the face of nature's fury. Dorian and Leif, shoulder to shoulder, felt the wind howl around them, as if the very air was rebelling against their presence. Their hearts raced with memories of brighter days, the echoes of their shared laughter mixing with the crackling electricity in the atmosphere. Who would have thought it would come to this? Brothers turned warriors, fighting for their home as rain began to pour like 1,000 angry fists, drenching the earth and turning the ground into a slippery mire of chaos and fear. Clutching makeshift shields of wood and grumbling at the deafening roars of thunder overhead, Dorian and Leif sprang into action, directing villagers like two steadfast captains on a sinking ship. They rallied their neighbors, voices rising above the tempest, coaxing their friends into forming a line to protect what little they had left. The smell of wet soil mixed with the pungent aroma of upturned earth hung heavy in the air, reminding them of their childhood adventures in sunny fields which now felt eons away. It was a strange irony, fighting the storm and reminiscing about carefree days under blue skies. Though they had spent years wrestling with old grudges, now they were united in purpose, with the wind at their backs, urging them onward. The realization filled them with laughter, absurdity in such dire straits. But they pushed away the gloom and turned it into fuel for their struggle. As the tempest raged, the brothers' thoughts flickered back to past misunderstandings. Battles fought not in the outside world, but in the quiet confines of their hearts. In that swirling chaos, resentments bubbled up like the frothy waves crashing against the village walls. Everything seemed futile at moments, and amid the gusts that shrieked like banshees, Dorian found a moment of clarity. "We were fools to let pride poison what we had," he shouted, eyes glinting with newfound resolve. And Leif, catching his gaze, felt a warm trickle of hope break through the storm's cold grasp. Their eyes met, and in that silent exchange, a weight lifted, years of tension dissipated like mist beneath the morning sun, making way for the powerful tide of forgiveness to wash over them. United by this fragile yet potent emotion, Dorian and Leif fought through the cacophony of crashing debris and shrieking winds, steering their people with the fervor of a legendary duo, like Frodo and Sam on a quest to save Middle-earth. Only with far fewer elves and a lot more mud. The storm's fury was relentless, but as they hoisted beams and wrangled tarps. A rhythm emerged between them, synchronized movements that spoke to a renewed bond, a trust rekindled in the flickering shadows of their former selves. Each time lightning struck, illuminating their darkened surroundings, they felt alive, not merely surviving, but thriving amidst the chaos, forging a path toward victory and healing. The elements roared in protest, yet here they were, two brothers standing tall, armed with both grit and grace, crafting a legendary tale of reclamation and rebirth right before their very eyes. As dawn peeked through the dissipating storm clouds, the village emerged, battered yet unbroken, a testament to resilience and the indomitable spirit of its people. Dorian and Leif stood side by side, surveying the remnants of their home, and the laughter that once echoed in the halls seemed to weave its way back into their hearts. They exchanged grins, their bond newly forged in sweat and sincerity, knowing this storm, both literal and metaphorical, had stripped away the cobwebs of their past. Forgiveness wasn't just a solemn word, but a rallying cry that had ignited hope in the face of despair. It was a brand new beginning, and like the faintest whispers of sun breaking through rain, they reveled in the glow of possibility, a clearer sky, endless laughter, and the sweet taste of homecoming. As the first rays of a new dawn broke over the village, the air shimmered with a soft, golden light, like a promise hanging over the battered landscape. The storm had left its mark, debris strewn about, crops flattened like pancakes on a griddle. But amidst the wreckage, hope began to unfurl. Dorian and Leif, once locked in a sibling rivalry fierce enough to rival any action movie, stood side by side, a new beginning sparking in their eyes. They rolled up their sleeves, determined to transform their patch of earth, signaling to the villagers that they were more than just brothers. They were now partners bound by resilience, and as they bent over the soil, grunting with the effort of replanting their dreams, you could almost hear the distant echoes of a drum roll, as if the universe was applauding their efforts with a cosmic finally. Each shovel of dirt they turned felt like a cathartic release, a physical manifestation of their journey from discord to understanding. The scent of damp earth mixed with the sweet, tangy aroma of freshly cut hay filled their lungs, invigorating them as they worked in rhythm, their movements a dance of determination. With every seed they sowed, they were not just restoring their crops, but weaving a tapestry of forgiveness that would envelop the entire village. The brothers laughed, trading playful jabs as if they were actors in a sitcom, their banter ringing clear among their neighbors. This wasn't just revival. It was a masterclass in reconciliation, and those around them couldn't help but be captivated, as if they had front row seats to an inspiring drama unfolding right before their eyes. Meanwhile, word of their collaboration spread like wildfire, igniting a spark of hope in the hearts of every villager. Folks who once avoided eye contact were now sharing spatulas at the communal kitchen, preparing hearty meals that filled the air with a blend of roasted meats and spices, so tantalizing even the pickiest toddler would perk up. Cheers and laughter floated upon the breeze, a healing balm soothing over the scars that had once divided them, kind of like a well-timed punchline in a difficult conversation. It was as if the storm had cleared not just the skies, but also the heavy fog of resentment that had hung over their heads for far too long, revealing a vibrant landscape of potential. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, someone broke out a guitar, filling the air with melodies that turned the village square into an impromptu festival of unity, reminding everyone that sometimes you need a good sing-along to mend what's broken. Dorian and Leif set out to create a harmonious blend of their once clashing visions, each brother's ideas merging like colors on an artist's palette, vibrant and unexpected. The crops they planted boasted a mix of Dorian's fierce grains and Leif's hearty vegetables, each field a testament to their newfound cooperation. Everyone chuckled at the sight of the brothers, arguing over what to name their first hybrid carrot. Would it be the Dorian's Delight or Leif's Legendary? In the end, they settled on Brotherly Bounty, a name that resonated well beyond its comedic origin, becoming a symbol of their shared journey toward reconciliation. As the first sprouts broke through the soil, they could already visualize the harvest parties, laughter ringing out once again, mingling with the sweet scent of success wafting through the fields. And so, as the sun began its descent, drenching the skies in hues of orange and pink, the village stood transformed, a tapestry, woven with threads of forgiveness and hope. For many, the story of Dorian and Leif became a guiding light, a reminder that even the fiercest of storms could lead to a new dawn, where enemies could become allies with a little bit of sweat and a hearty dose of humility. The entire community, celebrating this rebirth, realized that forgiveness was not just a word. Oh no, it was the secret sauce to achieving true harmony, just like how bacon makes everything better. As laughter and music echoed through the village like a triumphant cheer from the universe, everyone felt a surge of possibilities. After all, who knew that in the end, the strength of reconciliation could rival even the most epic plot twists from cinema? This village had not just survived, it was thriving and ready to face whatever came next together as one. In a quaint village nestled between imposing mountains that cast long shadows over cobblestone streets, Alara and Cadden had carved playgrounds out of the wilds, their laughter echoing like a sweet symphony. The air was thick with the scent of pine and wood smoke, and the passing seasons had woven a tapestry of memories in the bristling underbrush. But as the sun dipped into the golden hour, painting the sky a brilliant orange, Alara found herself tangled in a web of emotions that felt more like a medieval joust than the carefree days of their youth. Each glance at Cadden, his tousled hair catching the light just right, sent her heart racing. A frantic drummer on the battlefield of friendship versus love. Was she racing to protect what they had, or racing to protect herself from the cruel sting of unrequited affection? She felt as though she was stuck in a rom-com, minus the catchy soundtrack, and happy ending, just her and her ever-growing confusion. Meanwhile, Cadden drifted through life like a starship piloted by an oblivious captain, starry-eyed and blissfully unaware of the gravitational pull his presence held over Alara. He was mesmerized by dreams of adventure and discovery that danced through his mind like fireflies, oblivious to the brewing storm at his best friend's heart. The scent of new possibilities wafted through the village as a newcomer caught Cadden's attention, a mysterious girl with an entrancing smile and a tangy fragrance of citrus, like summer afternoons and lemonade stands. While he marveled at her, Alara simmered, her jealousy bubbling up like a pot left unattended on the stove. And oh, was it about to boil over? If friendship was a tightrope, she felt like a circus clown, teetering precariously, one foot in love and the other in despair, accepting applause or impending disaster with equal resignation. Everything felt heightened. The colors of the village seemed brighter, the sounds more chaotic, and her stomach twisted in a way that made her wish for the comfort of a gigantic chocolate cake. In the days that followed, Alara's internal war raged on like an epic saga, filled with plot twists and inexplicable side characters, mainly her own insecurities. Each day, she fumed at Cadden's carefree laughter, a sound that was once as sweet as honey, but now grated against her like an unwashed pot left over from last night's dinner. Were there hidden knights in shining armor she was yet to discover? Or had she just stumbled into the chosen one's unremarkable sidekick? While Cadden sought out more time with his new flame, Alara found herself playing the role of the reluctant gladiator, battling her own heart, wielding jealousy like a rusty sword. Her friends whispered encouragements, and the occasional girl, "You gotta tell him." But each time she opened her mouth, a chorus of self-doubt drowned her words in a cacophony of what-ifs and "but he's just a buddy." Family meals tasted of stale bread and tension, each bite punctuated by Alara's internal monologues about love, resilience, and what she'd say when the whole saga inevitably imploded. Then came a day that bloomed like a wildflower amid concrete, unexpected and vivid. After a long afternoon that had stretched out like a particularly dull movie, Alara had stormed to the village square, ready to confront her emotions with all the finesse of a charging rhinoceros. The sun hung low, casting long shadows that intertwined with her thoughts, when, out of the blue, she spotted Cadden and the new girl, huddled closely like two puzzle pieces, finally snapping into place. Alara felt the cold grip of ice water slide down her spine. Was this betrayal, or just evolution in their friendship's narrative? The laughter and shared memories flashed through her mind like scenes in a forgotten film reel, sparking a blend of passion and despair that felt both poetic and pathetic. So there she stood, internalizing the whirlwind of emotion, heart racing faster than the final countdown in a suspense thriller, contemplating whether she'd take the plunge or ice her heat-riddled resolve. As night descended, wrapping the village in a velvet cloak of shadows, Alara found herself at the riverbank, its gentle gurgling a soothing balm to her chaotic emotions. Here, under the stars, she could almost imagine a world where friendships didn't get complicated by feelings. A fantasy resembling one of those cozy Netflix holiday movies, where love magically solves everything by the end. With each breath, she inhaled the earthy smell of damp leaves, contemplating whether she'd brave the words that lingered on the tip of her tongue like a rebellious raspberry waiting to burst. It was a risk, a chance on the edge of uncertainty, and her heart hammered the drum roll as if composing the score to her very own transformation scene. Tearing her gaze from the river, she felt the warmth of resolve wash over her like an unexpected sunbeam. It was time to step out of the shadows and reclaim her narrative, whether as a friend, a lover, or something entirely different. After all, within the wild tapestry of life, wasn't it the broken threads and the patching together that made the story truly worth sharing? The air buzzed with the scent of impending rain, a low rumble of thunder echoing Alara's tangled thoughts. She glanced at the stormy sky, feeling a weight in her chest that mirrored the dark clouds above. Once vibrant laughter and teasing banter with Cadden had sweetened her days, but now it felt like a distant melody, drowned out by silence and unspoken truths. Alara clenched her fists, wishing she could package her tangled emotions neatly away. But as the water began to fall, so too did the dam she had built around her heart. Heartache, like a stubborn weed, broke through the cracks, reminding her of what once was, and now might never be again. Meanwhile, Cadden sauntered through life, blissfully unaware of his friend slipping away like sand through his fingers. He had found a new romance, a bright and sparkly distraction, complete with all the bells and whistles one might find in a rom-com. Days turned into weeks, and during that time, every text message he sent felt like a little gift wrapped in shiny paper. Except the most precious gift never made it to the party. His new girlfriend's laughter filled his ears, drowning out the whispers of Alara that once danced like pixies around them. The irony was thick in the air. Cadden was collecting moments in his new relationship while losing a friendship that had once felt invincible. Misunderstandings, much like awkward family dinners, can spiral out of control if left unattended. Alara cringed at the thought of confronting Cadden, her tongue tied like a ship's knot, one that she'd rather not untie in a stormy sea. Each misstep clung to her like wet clothes on a cold day, leaving her feeling trapped in an emotional cyclone of confusion and regret. She wanted to shout, "Hey, I'm still here." But the words fell from her lips like heavy stones, too cumbersome to lift into the air. As emotions crashed through her like waves, she had to face the truth. Love, in all its messy forms, was demanding a reckoning. Then came the moment of confrontation. Each step toward Cadden felt like navigating through a jungle filled with man-eating plants and venomous spiders. Alara stormed into the small cafe where they'd shared countless cups of coffee and whispered secrets, both of them caught unaware by the shifting tides. Her heart pounded like a rock band warming up, and when she finally dropped the metaphorical bomb, they stood amidst the chaos of spilled drinks and startled glances from unsuspecting patrons. "Why are you drifting away?" she blurted, her voice cracking like ice under pressure. Where hope and fear collided, a silence fell that held an electrical charge, a visceral mix of frustration and longing hanging in the air like stale popcorn at the movies. Regret danced around them like a dance-off that neither knew the steps, too uncomfortable and awkward, yet captivating. Cadden's face turned a shade of crimson that could rival a ripe tomato. Recognizing the distance he had allowed to grow between them, the weight of his oversight bore down like a boulder, and as he searched for words, all he could muster was, "I didn't realize." Oh, the bitter irony. Here they were, standing amidst turbulent waters, both longing for the calm of understanding, yet drowning in a sea of miscommunication. As they began to unravel the knotted threads between them, the storm outside raged on, but in the heart of their anguish lay the possibility of healing, a truce among the turbulence. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon that felt like the universe was weeping, Alara and Cadden stood on the edge of their friendship, words like daggers thrown back and forth. The air crackled with tension, charged with every unsaid truth and unacknowledged feeling that had simmered beneath the surface far too long. It was an argument worthy of an Oscar, both armed with grievances sharper than any sword from a medieval film. As they stormed away from each other, it was as if the invisible threads that once bound their spirits together had finally snapped, leaving a haunting silence that echoed in their hearts like a ghostly refrain of "What have we done?" The rain may have washed away the colors from the city streets, but it couldn't cleanse the vibrant resentment now sparking like a wildfire between them. Alara, her heart heavy, fled to her sanctuary, the art studio that smelled of turpentine and hope. The moment she stepped inside, a whirlwind of color and chaos enveloped her, beckoning her to spill her turmoil onto canvas. She picked up her brush like a knight takes up arms, each stroke a cathartic release, a response to the clashing storm in her chest. The vibrant reds and tempestuous blues danced wildly under her hands, swirling into shapes that mirrored the chaos of her emotions. As paint splattered and dripped, she mixed her frustration with hints of beauty, for art had always been her solace, her dangerous affair with healing, an outlet that didn't judge her like a heartbroken friend would. Meanwhile, on the other side of the universe, or at least a few blocks away, Cadden sat slumped on his bed, drowning in a sea of guilt thicker than the fog on a San Francisco morning. His phone buzzed like a swarm of angry bees, filled with messages he dared not read, out of fear that understanding would demand more than he was prepared to give. Guilt wrapped around him like a suffocating blanket, squeezing tighter with each memory of their heated words, a reminder that they'd crossed a line that felt both terrifying and ridiculous. He swallowed hard, the taste of regret bitter, sort of like that time he drank expired milk and spent the night regretting his life choices. In the stillness, he faced what he feared the most. The disintegration of their friendship was a loss sharper than any heartbreak he had ever experienced as a reluctant teen watching rom-coms on a Friday night alone. As the days dripped by, a cacophony of loneliness echoed in the empty spaces of their friendship, leaving both Alara and Cadden gasping for air. Each corner of their favorite coffee shop, once a bustling hub of laughter and shared secrets, now bore witness to moons of awkward silence, tables that felt more like battlegrounds than havens. Alara would paint away her sorrow, but each slide of the brush felt like holding back a tidal wave of tears, just waiting to drown her in a whirlpool of despair and longing. Cadden, meanwhile, tortured himself by replaying their last words, a tragic loop more gripping than any binge-worthy drama series on Netflix. They were both natural-born travelers on a path of self-discovery. Yet here they were, tripping over their own hearts, laughing ironically at the absurdity of it all. Eventually, the dawn broke over their enchanted city, shedding light on the shadows that had shrouded their hearts. Alara and Cadden found themselves at the edge of their minds, teetering between pride and the desire to heal. What if they reached out? What if they turned down the volumes of hurt and anger echoed in their minds? Each found themselves staring into the abyss of their own fears, love, loss, and all the sticky complications in between. The frayed ends of their friendship called them home, whispering like a favorite song that evokes potent memories, begging to rewrite their narrative. They lingered on the verge, teetering like unexpected superheroes in the aftermath of a dramatic showdown. Every fiber of their being yearning for the courage to step forward and bridge the chasm before it widened into an eternal divide. Under the aged arms of the old oak tree, its gnarled branches twisting like the complexities of their lives, Alara and Cadden gathered the courage to confront the ghosts that haunted them. The air smelled of damp earth mixed with the faint scent of pine, a reminder of childhood summers spent here, where laughter echoed like sweet music. But today, that melody was drowned out by the simmering tension hanging between them, thick enough to slice with a butter knife. Cadden could feel it rising in his chest, a storm brewing as Alara's eyes, usually so bright, flickered with a blend of anger and fear. It was a reckoning time, one neither of them had anticipated, yet both knew it was necessary. Like going to the dentist without Novocaine, it was going to hurt, but so be it. With their voices quaking like the leaves rustling overhead, Alara started, spilling her insecurity like a frayed punchline. You know, love feels like a bear trap, Cadden. It catches you when you least expect it. She shivered, recalling her past heartbreaks, where love was slipped under the rug like an unsightly stain. Cadden's heart ached for her, realizing that his indifferent moments had wounded her more than he had ever grasped. It was as if she was bearing her soul, each word dragging the weight of her fear out of the shadows, facing the terrifying monster beneath her bed for the first time. His own regrets swirled thickly in the air, as palpable as the earthy smell clinging to their surroundings. Then, like fireworks lighting up a night sky, Cadden blurted out, "But I've regretted every moment we drifted apart, Alara. I should have valued our friendship more." The irony danced in his words as he realized that for all their shared laughter, he had been as blind as a bat in a blackout. He recalled their long talks, those deep dives into dreams and fears, and how he had let distractions hijack what mattered most. With each fervent beat of his heart, he unraveled his truth, admitting to his missteps like a kid, confessing to stealing cookies from the jar, guilt-stained, sugar-coated, and unable to escape the sticky consequences. Alara listened, nodding in rhythm like a spectator at a rock concert, absorbing his honesty like a sponge, soaking up spilled soda, as honesty coursed between them like a long-lost river, reconnecting with the sea. A palpable understanding settled in their hearts, transforming the painful tension into a bridge of hope. The shadows of misunderstandings receded, and laughter, even if tinged with bittersweet sorrow, began to pepper their dialogue. Alara chuckled through her tears, teasing, "So, we're basically the walking, talking version of a rom-com, aren't we? Minus the dramatic music and the cheesy soundtrack." Cadden laughed, feeling lighter, the burdens of missed opportunities starting to lift. Amid laughter and newfound lightness, they began to recognize not only their intertwined pain, but also the potential for healing, like a long patch of sun after a storm. Standing there, beneath the watchful oak, as if it were an old friend bearing witness, they both knew that forgiveness was just as critical as the truths they shared. There, amidst the rough bark and spread of leaves, they found a flicker of something beautiful, an unexpected warmth that began to thaw their frozen hearts. Cadden gently brushed back Alara's hair, his fingertips grazing her cheek like the autumn breeze, and they both held their breath, daring to dream of what could blossom from this newfound understanding. Perhaps this reckoning was just the prologue to a love story yet to unfold, where every chapter would be written with both laughter and honesty at the forefront. And with the world buzzing around them like a soundtrack of hope, they stepped away from the oak, lighter, bolder, ready to weave the tapestry of their lives together once more. With the first golden rays of dawn spilling across the horizon, Alara and Cadden found themselves standing at the edge of their new reality. The air buzzed around them, filled with the chirps of morning birds racing to announce the day, as if the world bore witness to their transformation. Just months before, the shadows of misunderstanding had darkened their hearts, leaving scars that whispered of pain. But now, as the light pierced through the gloom, it shone upon a friendship rekindled, a bond strengthened by the fires of adversity. They stood ready to redefine what it meant to be us, with nothing but a sunrise and the rustle of leaves cheering them on. Alara felt the warmth of the sun kissing her skin, infusing her with a renewed sense of purpose. The scent of blooming jasmine wrapped around her like a comforting shawl, reminding her of sultry summer nights spent gabbing about everything and nothing. You know, it's like we're the characters in some whimsical rom-com, only minus the awkward meet-cute and quirky sidekick. Cadden chuckled, his laughter dancing in the air. He had shed the weight of his past insecurities, and his eyes sparkled with a newfound bravery as they began to traverse the intricate landscape between love and friendship. Each joke, each playfully sworn allegiance, rang with the resonance of two souls navigating the complexities that lie between platonic and romantic. As autumn leafed into view, with crimson and gold painting the world outside their window, Alara and Cadden turned their focus towards the dreams they once shelved in the wake of their heartaches, with every heartbeat thumping to the rhythm of possibility. The two cheered each other on like their favorite sports team. Alara dared to dream of opening her own art studio, while Cadden's eyes lighted up at the thought of performing in a band. Just imagine me on stage, crowd going wild. I might even do a cartwheel or three, he joked, a playful grin lighting up his face. The sweetness of their playful banter solidified the promise of their bond, a friendship fortified by mutual respect and vibrant aspirations. Navigating the treacherous waters of their emotions felt almost as bewildering as flipping through a 1,000-page romance novel with no glossary. They each learned to celebrate spontaneity while embracing vulnerability, a difficult dance that often led to missteps. Cadden found himself sharing his fears of failure, his voice cracking like a vintage record under pressure, while Alara learned to speak her heart's language, even when it trembled. Moments like these left the air heavy with unsaid words, but they were treasures, gems of honesty in a world often painted in shades of gray. And as they opened up, their souls intertwined with a bond richer than any silken thread. Humor dappled their conversations like confetti, so as winter's chill nipped at their heels, Alara and Cadden embraced their newfound beginning a friendship that thrived in the space between love and companionship, crackling with warmth amidst the frost. They watched the first snowflakes fall, swirling like delicate dreams, and the spark of possibility in their hearts. The laughter they shared warmed the air, transforming their evening stroll into a playful adventure reminiscent of a classic holiday movie, the kind you cringe at, but can't help but love. With promises tacked like bright ornaments on their friendship tree, they stood proud, ready to face whatever storms might come. And together, they ventured into the world, hearts healed, surrounded by the vibrant hues of a new dawn, light spilling over their horizon like a promise.